I watched that one during the week, and then I re-listened to all the music yesterday.
Okay, and
While I was
I posted a documentary, a short documentary. It was like a 10-minute documentary on Chile in the 70s.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I wrote that one down. So I thought they looked really, really trendy and modern. I mean, I'm thinking of the pictures I saw of Ireland in the 70s, and we were a complete agricultural society. I mean, people got dressed up to go to the city for the
Yes.
day. But that video of Chile, you saw the cars, the women looked really glamorous. It looked really clean. It looked like an American city. It looked very
It
vibrant.
did, right? Yeah.
I don't know, maybe more like a London or Manchester, maybe one of the English girls would know, or Liverpool even, as opposed to what I would have expected of Chile at the time. But I don't know, maybe I'm not referencing that. But I thought it looked really, really modern for the time, if I
Oh,
compare
yeah.
it.
I mean, because I posted two videos. One that was really short, like 3 minutes of that, what you're mentioning, Santiago in the 60s.
Yeah.
Really modern, really trendy. Yeah, really urban. But there was
Yeah.
another documentary that showed a sort of
Like
contrast.
the agricultural side, and you saw
Yeah,
the poverty and the people.
exactly.
Yeah, that reminded me more of like an agricultural, impoverished
Hmm.
country. That looked much more like Ireland with sun, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
Actually, that was Chile in its majority, I would say. Like Santiago
yeah,
was
exception.
a specific part of Santiago was a different thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that reminded me of that kind of, low income families, very little education, kids on the street, possibly, dropping out of school early, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of depression, that economic depression.
Yes,
Very,
exactly.
very rural.
Ellen,
Yeah.
did you have the chance of watching the documentary?
Unfortunately, no.
I highly recommend you watch that because it's really interesting from what your classmates have to say. Rona, you watched it and you wrote very moving words about it.
Yeah, I was just struck by the children in the contrast between those that had and those that didn't, and hard to believe it was the same era, really. And dirty children sifting through rubbish, presumably
Yeah,
looking for things to keep or to sell, I'm assuming, to help support the family. But yeah, it was
yeah,
just the
exactly.
contrast
Looking for
was
things to eat.
stark. Yeah.
Yep. And on the other hand, you have these glamorous people like partying and probably
Yeah.
somebody mentioned that boredom is a luxury, right? You have your time, you have your stuff to do. Tamana, did you watch it?
Yeah, I did watch both of them, but I don't know. Well, I watched what was on the page. Is this the one of the weaving?
Yep.
No, that's Louis Lebert, I think. No?
Yep. There were two of them, like the one
And
person.
is one with a man a weaving a basket
Yeah.
and well, my impressions, I don't know, it felt very older than what the video you said is from the 50s.
57.
Yeah, it felt even older than that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was what's really struck me. It just felt like something from very, very long ago. So I know that's not very deep, but that's what I felt. And I don't know. I don't remember the other one.
It's a good idea because in that film, the director at the time in 57, I guess, yeah, 57, he thought he could foresee that all of those kinds of work will disappear. So he wanted to grab them in a way in the images. And it's something that you see now in one specific spot here in Chile, in what's its name? It's a rural area near Santiago, Pomaire maybe, where you see that, but only that. And
I've been there.
sorry?
Pomaire. I've been to Pomaire.
you've been there, right? It's a sort of rural area where they do like it's like traveling through time, right?
Yeah, but I think that film of 57, I think if you took a film of rural Spain at the same time,
Yes.
or rural Ireland, I can't speak for England, but I imagine it was similar. Maybe not England, it's probably more advanced, but I think there would have been a lot of countries in a similar situation. Maybe not the Americas and stuff like that, but it really reminded me, it really struck a chord. Like it, it developed so much. You had such a contrast between people who lived in a city, in this urban area, there's much more wealth, and a rural area which seemed to be just kind of stuck in time.
Yep. Well, the music that is played in that film was composed by Violeta Parra. Yeah.
Oh.
The greatest. I think Luis will speak about Violeta Parra in deeper realms, but I can tell you that in that film, the combination of the music and the activity the man is performing was a very clear example of what was going on in the countryside or in rural areas. And it was something that the director thought that could or may disappear in the future. I'll actually send you another documentary by the same director in which he mixes like traditional music and rock and roll in the 50s. And you'll see that how they combine to show you that some invasion is coming and rural ideas and rural culture is disappearing, right? Now, let's talk about music then. There was another film, I don't know if you had the chance of watching it, Janis, but there was Venceremos, which is a 10-minute documentary on what was going on in 1970. Janis, did you have the chance of watching it? You muted. Janis, you're in silence. Okay.
I looked at the drive to see if there was anything I'd missed, and I didn't see those. I did see the one about the man weaving the basket and stuff. So I'm gonna have to go back and there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think
I didn't see Venceremos either.
You didn't?
No.
Okay.
No. Did you see it,
I
Tamara?
think I sent it through email, but I can send it to you anyway, later on.
Email.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one.
Rhonda saw it. What? Right? Rhona, you did?
Yeah, I saw it. It was on the classroom link, but it was as I recall, because I watched it quite soon after the lesson. I should have taken notes because I can't remember, but it was more just about people traveling around the city. As far as I can remember, there was quite a lot of transport, and again, it was quite people going to work maybe, and quite business orientated.
Yep.
As I recall.
Yep.
Quite
You
show the poverty. Didn't show the poverty. I don't recall.
You can. I'll look for it now. You can watch it after the session. But it's a 10-minute documentary that shows you what was going on in Chile in 1970, which is the year of the election of Allende.
It had all the buses, people holding on to the buses. And
Yeah, like this. These are our images from the picture, from the movie, sorry. And yeah, we'll see another contrast here, like you were saying, Rona, kids eating from garbage versus people going to work and versus people celebrating the day Allende was elected president of Chile. That's the end of the movie. Sorry about the spoilers, but that's it. It's a 10-minute documentary that shows you the way Chile was in 1970 and what was the end of it is the election of Allende and how things were going to change supposedly, right? And in this film you find music as well, representing the era. But since this is a class related to music, let's see what we can find. In general terms, oh, I'm not sharing the sound, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear anything now?
Nope.
Okay. Yes. And now?
Te recuerdo, Amanda, la calle mojada, corriendo a la fábrica donde trabajaba Manuel. La sonrisa ancha, la lluvia en el pelo, no importaba nada, ibas a encontrarte con él, con él, con él, con él, con él. Son 5 minutos, la vida es eterna en 5 minutos. Suena la sirena, de vuelta al trabajo, y tú caminando lo iluminas todo. Los 5 minutos te hacen florecer.
Okay, what were we listening to? Janice,
Is
sir?
this the guy? Is this what's his name? Harra, his daughter Amanda?
Exactly. Victor
This is Victor.
That's Victor Jara. That's Victor Jara. Yeah,
The
that's
one that was
Victor.
killed on the day of the coup.
Exactly. 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 You said it. Yeah. Now, why was he killed? Apparently, he was very dangerous to the new regime that was in power. But this is Victor Jara. Victor Jara is a man from the countryside, agricultural Chile, that had to work from very early on to help his family. His mother was called Amanda, and his father was called Manuel. So he wrote this sort of short story, Te recuerdo, Amanda. I remember you, Amanda. And he talks about how Amanda was to the factory to bring lunch for Manuel, her husband. That's it. Storytelling. Somebody said last week that we moved from pop music to storytelling. Yeah, they're telling stories. And if you see the images, the pictures of Victor Jara, how would you describe him? Tamara?
He looks Italian.
He looks Italian. Look at that. Yeah, but how would you describe him?
He's
What
like
do you-
he's like a father, like a loving father, like
Yeah.
yeah.
A loving father. He cared a lot about children, especially poor kids, right? He went even into going to live to a shanty town area, sort of, and he made this concept album called La Población, Shantytown, right, which is really good. Now, he was basically an artist. He studied theater and play, and he was a director, theater director, and he was really into acting. But he started working with a music group, folk music group, in terms of the stage presence. You know, he was working with the stage presence, with the way they should move, but he wasn't at all related to music. Of course, he played the guitar because his mother played the guitar when he was a kid, probably. But then one day when they were touring Europe, the main singer got sick. And there was a moment in the show where the singer was supposed to sing like a solo part. So he took the plunge, he took the guitar and played in front of the audience, out of the blue. And in that moment, he realized the power of music and how he could convey meaning to a lot of people just with the guitar and his voice. And that's when he started his music career by the end of the 60s. Okay, so in 69 he won a contest of the Chilean music, the new song, the new Chilean music, and he won this contest in the Catholic University. Now the problem is that in his lyrics he was combining a sort of reality of the workers and parts of the Bible. Yeah, so it was considered very outrageous, but very original too. So he won this contest, and that is when he became more famous in musical terms, right? But then in 1970, he thought that music was supposed to be related to political issues too, and the people, yeah, common people like him. So he joined forces in the campaign of Salvador Allende, Unidad Popular, left wing to the core, right? That brought him problems later on, right? But during this time, he was playing music that was beautiful and powerful at the same time. Let's see what happens if we play another song. Okay, give me 1 second. Yeah.
Cuando voy al trabajo, pienso en ti por las calles del barrio. Pienso en ti cuando miro los rostros tras el vidrio empañado, sin saber quiénes son, dónde van. Pienso en ti, mi vida, pienso en ti, compañera de mis días y del porvenir, de las horas amargas y la dicha de poder vivir, laborando el comienzo de una historia sin saber el fin.
Okay, so when you listen to Victor Jara, what do you listen? What can you hear? Janice, for example.
Well, I just find his voice is very pure, and I'm fanatic about the guitar, so. But yeah, he sings from the heart. He's very honest, and I find you really connect with him.
Yeah, true. Ellen, what do you think?
I think his voice is definitely like super soothing. But I think his lyrics are pretty descriptive, like kind of help you imagine what's going on.
I think that comes from his experience in theater. It's very clear when he's telling you a story. He's basically talking to his beloved one, and he's telling her, like, when I go to work, I think of you. When I walk on the street, I think of you. That's saying that. Rona, what do you hear when you listen to Victor Jara?
Just kind of quite Spanish sounding guitar music. Yeah, my Spanish is not so good, so I probably miss out on.
If you don't understand the lyrics, that's all right. But what does his voice convey?
It's gentle, and it's he sounds quite passionate about what he's singing about, and
yeah, that's true. That is true. What do you think, Tamara?
I feel like there's like a feeling of, I don't know, like longing in his voice, you know, like it's pulling for something.
Yes, exactly. And Kathy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I go with what Alan and Tamara said. Soothing. His voice is so melodic. I couldn't get the word out. And it's just like this gentle, like Rona said, this kind of like gentle, soothing voice. But then again, there's this longing for something.
Yeah.
And in this case, in this song for her, Pienso en ti, you know, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. A bit of melancholy there, right?
Yeah, a little bit of sadness.
Sadness. but he was actually singing about hope. Let's see what happens if we play this. What? Sorry. Yeah.
De vivir, poeta Ho Chi Minh, que golpea de Vietnam a toda la humanidad. Ningún cañón borrará el surco de tu arrozal, el derecho de vivir en paz. Indochina es el lugar más allá del ancho mar, donde revientan la flor con genocidio y napalm. La luna es una explosión que funde todo el clamor, el derecho de vivir en paz.
What is happening now? Is his voice again longing for something or sad? What do you think, Ellen, now?
Definitely not sad. I still think there's a lot of sincerity in his voice, and incorporating more instruments.
Yes, more instruments. Actually, there's a band there. Tamara, what do you think? What are you listening to when you hear this song?
It feels, there's still that sense of hope, as you were saying, but it feels a little more victorious. Like
a little bit more, yeah. Yeah, actually the title of the song is El Derecho de Vivir en Paz, the right to live in peace, right? He was claiming to live in peace, right, Kathy?
No, but I found it interesting. When did he write that song or play that song? Because obviously that would have been a difficult. I mean, was it before 72?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so before he died, obviously before he died, it wasn't posthumous that it came out or anything.
No, it was around 70 and 71.
Okay, so he's talking about the Vietnam War.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought that had been. I mean, obviously in the US that was a big, huge at the time. But he was taking the side. Maybe it's because he was a leftist or more on that line that he was taking the side of the
because of that. It's because also he and a lot of musicians were seeing was unfair in this war, and also according to some writers, Marisol Garcia, for example, she claimed that rock music at this time in the United States and in England, the main sources, were really concerned about this Vietnam War. So all of the rock musicians around the world who were trying to imitate them took these themes too, right? Instead of singing about what was going on here in Chile, they were singing about what was going on in Vietnam. But in the case of Victor Jara, he saw this as an international and universal idea. Maybe, like the great artists do, maybe he was foreseeing what was going on in the future, right? If it happened to Vietnam, it could happen to anyone in the world, which actually happened later on. But I wanted to ask you about the music. Somebody said that there are more instruments, right?
Suddenly got electric.
Electric guitar in there.
A lot of electric guitar there. Hendrix, what are you doing? No, but there's something that calls my attention, and I always highlight this. He was singing about peace. Yeah, peace in the world. Do you remember the song Imagine by John Lennon? He was saying basically the same at the same time. Right? Let's live in peace. Victor Jara is our John Lennon, or at least it's mine. That's how big he is, right? Now the problem
Really?
is
He's that big here? He's as big as John Lennon?
I would say he is because of this.
Yeah.
In September 1973, he was taken to the Estadio Chile, the day of the coup. Like he worked at the University of Santiago, right? And as a worker, he thought that the best way of defending the legacy of Allende was going to work. So he went to the university. He was taken prisoner with a lot of people there. They were taken to the Estadio Chile, which now is called Estadio Jara after what happened. He was tortured, killed in a very miserable way. They destroyed his hands, basically. According to some people who were present there, they said that they destroyed his fingers, they burned with cigarettes, they burned their hands, and they were claiming like, play the guitar now, you communist, you freaking red, right? So he was murdered, killed in a very terrible way. Then his family was exiled. His wife was British, actually, Joan Jara. And so she started to go around the world telling the story of Victor Jara and fighting for human rights. Now, during the dictatorship, he was banned. He was canceled in culture. You couldn't mention him. You couldn't listen to his music. His records were destroyed, as you can see here. They were burning his records. And that's how he became a symbol of resistance, right? In Chile, in South America, in some other countries. I don't know. Do you know the band called Rage Against the Machine?
Yeah.
Okay, Victor Jara is one of their idols, for example, right? Now, the military and the dictatorship wanted to make him disappear, but actually what they did is they turned him into a legend, an immortal person, right? Who was fighting for freedom and peace, and he was killed, he was murdered. I mean, somebody who smiles like that and he's always hoping for the best was killed in a very terrible way. And he was a visionary too. I wanted to highlight that too. He was a visionary. Why? Because you said it. He played the guitar, he played sort of Spanish folkloric music, but in the song that we just listened, there were rock instruments. Because he saw that rock was the future of folklore. Like if you listen to the Beatles now, all the bands that play rock now are like common culture, right? He saw that. And at the same time, who was doing that? Like Bob Dylan was doing that, Neil Young, they were doing that, turning from folk to rock music. The Byrds also, the Beatles even. Actually, he went to England in 1967 with the theater company, and he saw the look of the Beatles, and he tried to replicate that, like dressed in black with the boots and all that. Now, the Latin American dream. What do you see when you look at this picture?
Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu,
Yeah.
okay. And how would you interpret this picture, this image? What's happening in the picture, according to you?
He's singing or singing to the mountains. It's kind of like nearly representation of indigenous heritage or culture.
Exactly. Anything else? Janice, Tamara, Ellen, Rona? What's happening here? I mean, he's not only singing to Chile, he's singing to
The whole world.
nature,
Yeah.
the whole world. And the way I see it, maybe I'm too romantic, but this is like a cape. It's like a superhero. It's like an Avenger or something like that, right? He's trying to recreate this. Now, you were listening to some rock music played by Victor Jara with another band that we're going to listen to now. Yeah. What's happening here?
Tu silueta va caminando con el alma triste y dormida. Ya la aurora no es nada nuevo, pa' tus ojos grandes y pa' tu frente. Ya el cielo y sus estrellas se quedaron mudos, lejanos y muertos pa' tu mente ajena. Nos hablaron una vez cuando niños, cuando la vida se muestra entera, y el futuro que cuando grande, ahí murieron ya los momentos, sembraron así su semilla, y tuvimos miedo, temblamos, y en esto se nos fue la vida.
Okay, what's happening here, Tamara?
Well, I feel like it still has that melancholy that you were talking about earlier. And well, I think it feels like in this era, in this song too, the lyrics become very important. The message that they're trying to convey. Again, I don't speak very good Spanish, so I don't know everything that's being said, but it feels important.
It feels important, right? But the way, the tone they're singing it, right? And what about the music, Rona?
It seems to have gone back to a little bit more classical, sort of Spanish sounding guitar. And
that's true. That's true. Ellen, what do you think?
Yeah, it sounds sad.
It sounds sad, right?
Yeah.
It's really similar to what Victor Jara was doing, right? Because there's an influence. Believe it or not, this is considered part of the history of rock music in Chile. This band is called Los Blobs. Los Blobs. It's actually, the name is kind of weird. It doesn't mean anything in Spanish, but it conveys something. It's the sound of a drop of rain falling down and hitting the ground. That's it. That's it, right? So they wanted to convey nature, right? Because they were really influenced by, I don't know, folk music in the States, British music, the Beatles, especially the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and the like. But they had a lot of interest in folklore, in the Latin American folklore music, and also some of them were trained musicians in classical music. That's why, as Rona said, it sounds a little bit Spanish, the guitars. Listen to it. Yeah? Classical music. Now, this is important. When they saw Violeta Parra, sorry, Janice.
Just say they have a flute, which is not really kind of a rock band style. It's definitely folkloric. With the flute.
Exactly. They were mixing a lot of things. That's why a lot of people didn't understand what they were doing. Like, what are you doing? Like, folk music, rock? Is this rock music? Whatever. They didn't get it. Now, the thing is that when they saw Violeta Parra and they met Victor Jara, they understood that rock music wasn't about electric guitars and heavy metal drums, rock music was about the place where it was made. So if they were in Chile, a sort of rural area still, they were able to combine these sounds in this experience. And in 1970, DICAP, the music company of the Communist Party, signed them. Now, here's a problem. All of the musicians and artists that were in DICAP were part of the sort of revolution. They were singing about what was going on. They were singing about politics. They were singing about people, injustice, etc., etc. These kids were singing about the countryside, singing about flowers, singing about rivers. They weren't singing about what was going on in a way. I mean, it was going on, but it was an alternative. They had a problem with the director of the company. He wanted to fire them because they weren't part of the revolution. And then Victor Jara talked to the guy and said, "You're a blind guy. You don't see what the future is. This is the future of music. And they're my friends. And they're with me. And if you kick them out, I'll leave too." The most important singer in the label was able to leave if they were supposed to leave.
Was Victor Hara part of their group, or was he
No.
just in the same DCAP company? He never joined them.
Never joined them. He was part of the same company. The company wanted to get rid of them, and Victor Jara told them not to because they were friends, and he wanted to do something with them. Actually, if you look at this picture, you
can see him.
You can see him. The first song the song we listened before, El Derecho de Vivir en Paz, which you said it, had more instrument, was more rock influence. It's Victor Jara and Los Blobs. And that is a song that is a symbol. It's still sung in protest, in manifestations, in the streets. In the 2019 protest, that was a song that people would sing at the end of the day. Now, being friends with Victor Jara, playing rock music, let's see what you can tell me about this song now. Yeah.
Que crea en la gente por nada, porque las noches que están pasando son largas, pero a mí no me digas nada.
So what can you get from this performance? Janice, for example.
I don't have a heck of a lot with that. It was too short.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple of seconds.
Is that Vertigo or is it Machinata?
That's Vertigo.
Okay.
That's Vertigo.
Las mujeres que lloran son gotas de agua.
Yeah, sorry? Janice?
You're talking about women crying?
Women crying, yeah. But
I feel like in this
yeah, Tamara, go ahead.
Well, it just seems like it's taken a turn with these like long form songs that go on, like Pink Floyd, or that go on, and they follow like some kind of journey.
Exactly. According to some musicologists here, there's a tradition in rock music in Chile, which is basically a long story told instead of having a big chorus. Like we don't have a "We Will Rock You" song. That's what I mean. We do have these long songs that tell stories. That comes from folklore, comes from Violeta Parra, comes from Victor Jara, and it's taken into the blobs. Or like you said before, Tamara, Mira Niñita is a song, a very long song that it evolves in its sounds and the strength, So according to some musicologists, that's our rock music, like a very long song that tells you a story, regardless the words. You understand the feel, right? Now I have a question for you, Ellen. Victor Jara and Los Blobs were friends. What do you think that happened in September 73 with Los Blobs?
I'd say they maybe flee the country after what happened to Victor.
That is a very good answer, because actually they disbanded. After what happened in September, they disbanded. They were, I have to say this, they were high-class kids, though, with a lot of connections and contacts, so they didn't have to leave immediately, but they did. They went away, they went abroad to study. They went to Canada, the States, Germany. They went to Europe, for example, to pursue university studies. Yeah, they didn't just escape like a lot of people did. They had some of them had the luxury of not escaping, continuing working as musicians, right? But they had to leave anyways because they were friends with the communists, and that was a sign of being sort of the enemy. Now, Los Blobs, the selection I prepared today is based on the recent history of Chile. Coup d'etat. Victor Jara was killed, like lots of people were. Los Blobs disbanded. They had to do different things. They had to reinvent themselves, and eventually they left the country. And then we have another example. Los Jaivas. Los Jaivas. Let's listen to Los Jaivas for a second and see what happens. Okay. There we go.
Mira, niñita, y te voy a llevar a ver la luna brillando en el mar. Mira hacia el cielo y olvida ese lánguido temor que fue permanente emoción. Ay, fue permanente emoción. De un hombre con ojos de cristal y papel sellado en la piel. emoción. Para la hija de un hombre con ojos de cristal y papel sellado en la piel.
Okay, here we have the Mira Niñita that Tamara mentioned. Kathy, what do you hear when you listen to this Mira Niñita? Los Jaivas.
So when I put it on, I thought the beginning of it almost sounded like a lullaby.
Huh? Yeah.
Very,
it is true.
yeah, rhythmic, very like a lullaby. But then it kind of changes. What I put down here is when I listen to it, it's like it changes almost like a lullaby and then goes into like a fast rhythmic pipe song. So it kind of, maybe as you say, it's this journey, you know, it starts off soft, kind of almost like something you would sing to a child, you know, Mira Niñita, and it's like this, and then it goes into this faster rhythmic pipe song. That's what I've got down.
That's true. It's like a journey because it's the same chord repeated after and after and after after. It's the same thing.
It reminds me of this soft kind of music that you might play for a kid to get them to settle, and then it develops obviously.
Well, it's
you go, no, it's not that song. They're not going to go to sleep.
It's very interesting what you were saying because according to them, and this I'm going to explain a little bit now, Los Jaivas is a group of friends. They were friends when they were kids. So they were playing music as kids. I mean, music was a game for them, right? And they were friends in like elementary school or something. It's a band of three brothers, Gabriel, Claudio, and Eduardo, and two friends, Mario and Eduardo, El Gato. They started as a band in 1973 with a different name, the High Bass. I don't know if you know this, but when you buy an amplifier, when you connect the cables, you have the high tones and the bass tones. So they took that from the amplifiers, and also because three of them are really tall, the high ones, and two of them were short, the bass ones. So that was a game again. In 1963, last class we said that in 63 there was still like this Latin American music or the Americanized version of musicians. They were basically this Latin American music playing in parties and bars. They were playing tango, cha-cha-cha, salsa, anything that was played on the radio and that would could get them a job in a party, they would play that. Actually, if you look at them, this is the way they looked in 63, but then this is 1970. There was something in between. What happened? The experimentation came. They traveled, especially Gato. Gato traveled around South America for, I don't know, 6 months. And he came with long hair, with beard, and he saw the future. He said, like, the future is playing our own music. And the way we can play our own music is going back to the roots. Let's go back to the rehearsal room and play the music as a game. Let's not play songs. Let's just experiment with our instruments. That led to a period of extreme experimentation. And like you said, Tamara, it's the same time as Pink Floyd were playing their experimental music. They were doing the same, but in Chile, and they never listened to Pink Floyd in the 60s. That's weird.
Wow.
That's really weird.
Amazing. Love that.
That is amazing. But then they changed this, and they changed the name High Bass, which a lot of people pronounce high bass. Probably in Australia they would say bass. And they turned into Los Jaivas, the Chilean way of the name, right? And then they had a hit in 1972. Weird. Todos Juntos. I think that Todos Juntos is maybe the closest thing we have to We Are the Champions. Let's see if we can listen to this. Yeah. What was that? Here we come.
Hace mucho tiempo que yo vivo preguntándome para qué la tierra es tan redonda y una sola no más. Si vivimos todos separados, ¿para qué son el cielo y el mar? ¿Para qué es el sol que nos alumbra si no nos queremos ni mirar?
We are the champions. Hey, like that. Rona, what do you hear when you listen to this?
It still sounds quite sort of what I would, as a non-Latin American person, feel sort of quite Latin America.
Yeah.
But kind of, I can see what you're saying about We Are the Champions. It's quite anthemic and
Uh-huh.
catchy, and yeah.
And it's no surprise that that's the song they finish their sets with. Everyone singing, right?
What year did they sing that?
Sorry?
Or was it really? What year?
72.
Because, and I don't know if anyone else found this. Did it remind anyone of the music from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? You know,
Yeah, at the start, it
end?
was like a spaghetti western.
Yeah, like a spaghetti western at the end with the pipes, and he's going off when, you know,
Mhm.
what's his
Maybe-
name? And he goes
Clint
off and he
Eastwood.
finally gets the money and stuff, and he's got it. And I was like, oh my goodness, this sounds so like a spaghetti western.
Probably there's an influence there
Triumphant.
because that kind of films was really popular in Chile at the time.
Yeah, because I just looked it up, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was 66. So
Mhm.
it was that kind of music, like at the triumphal music
Yeah.
at the end, and he's riding
Yeah,
off on the
yeah.
horse, and he leaves
Um,
Eli Wallace hanging from the
It's
tree.
true. Maybe there's an influence there. There's an idea. But as I said, the members of the band had always said that they didn't listen to any other kind of music. They didn't listen to other artists because they didn't want to be influenced by anyone else. You know, that was really closed experience. They started listening to, I don't know, Pink Floyd or, I don't know, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, whatever, years later. Or even Led Zeppelin. Actually, this is a story I wanted to tell you too, but let me know what you think of it. Janice.
I was just gonna say they reminded me of the Gypsy Kings
Mhm.
music,
Mhm.
very similar sound.
Yeah, and again, it's like a lullaby. It's repeating the same thing after one time after another, and it's like that sticks with you, right? Sticks into your mind. Ellen, what do you think?
I like the build up
Yeah,
in the beginning, but I think like it's definitely a song that you've put on like to feel like you're gonna conquer the day.
this was,
I feel.
yeah, exactly. Actually, this was their first big hit. They were really popular at the time with this song. Very popular in 1973. Actually, they were planning to have a concert in the municipal theater with an orchestra the same week that the coup d'etat happened. Actually, the flyers and the posters are still found in the archives, of course. But they had to leave the country. They had to leave in the country, and they went to Argentina in '73, immediately after the coup, and they lived there for I don't know, 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, something like that. They became part of the Argentinian scene, and that's where they sort of changed their idea of music. They started to play more songs, not just like build-ups and these long anthems. They started to give shape to their compositions. And for example, we have this. Oops. The pipes. Yeah, here we go.
En la guerra del aquí vive la gente feliz. Las velas nunca se apagan, salvo cuando hay luna llena. Las gallinas ponen tortilla al amanecer. Los patos dan pantalones, las ranas lavan las flores. Llueve cuando hay sopa y pillas. Las arañas tejen chalecos de un don por ver.
Yeah. What's happening now, Ron?
I'm trying to think of the name of the artist it reminds me of. I can't think, but it's sort of quite triumphant, but it really reminds me of somebody. I'm gonna have to think about that and come back to you.
Okay, think about it while Kathy tell us what you think.
So I had down here for this one, upbeat, que saltan los niños, no, like the kids are jumping around, a little bit like a sing-along. I had down for it, like everyone joins in kind of thing. And again, pipes, drums, and electric guitar, which is kind of the mixture that I have in there. But that's what I noted down when I was.
Does anybody know cueca?
Yeah, this kind of reminds me, when I heard it now, I thought of Luis and his, listen to the marketplace and cueca and the people shouting and like nearly Arabic, this kind of triumphal sound at the end, like.
Actually, this is a sort of psychedelic cueca.
Okay.
The same beat, but with more instruments. It's like madness all over, right?
I have that for their next one, Los Caminos que se abren. I have that down, psychedelic, almost Arabic.
Yes.
For the next one.
Of Hocus Pocus is coming to mind. I think that's what I'm thinking.
Hocus Pocus, yeah. Yeah. And they were doing a lot of that, like, I don't know. Los Caminos que se abren, you say.
That's the one I have down as being psychedelic and nearly Arabic.
Yes. Yes, because it's like a march.
Yeah.
A gypsy march.
I thought it sounded like a march. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes me think of the national anthem.
Sorry?
It makes me think of the national anthem. Maybe
the national anthem. Yeah, too.
Yeah.
It's like an anthem in general. Yeah. Remember I told you there was a time where they were just experimenting with music? This is basically what they were doing. Stuff like that. And in the concert, there are bootlegs of the era. In the concert, they would play like one song, one very long song for 30 minutes. Just like the same thing that Pink Floyd were doing, or I don't know. Yes. But they didn't, imagine it's the 70s. Chile and England were really far away from each other, and we didn't have that access to the information. So it's really
But did
interesting.
they have access to drugs? Is this all like drug based?
Hey, was there drugs
Yes,
like
exactly.
there were in the UK at this time?
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, but they had access to like natural drugs, like the juice
Magic
of
mushroom.
cactus, marijuana. You know, not so much about pills or something that you can inject in your body. It was
Okay.
more natural, yeah, because also they had an interest in the indigenous cultures and in shamans, you know.
I love the fact that they were specific with their drugs. I'm very sorry. I only want it if it's natural. I'm not taking it if it comes in a pill.
Something like that. Now,
We have standards here. We're going to go with the natural stuff.
The important thing to notice here is that they had to leave the country, and they were nomads in the end. They lived in Argentina, they lived in France for many years. So that represented the story of the exiles, right? They were representing our culture in different areas. And in 1981, they played what must be the most important rock album, or one of the most important rock albums in Latin American music, which is Alturas de Machu Picchu. They recorded music based on Pablo Neruda's poems about Machu Picchu. And it's very interesting because they were living in France. They had never visited Machu Picchu before. They had never read the poem. So they read the poem, they recorded the music, and they launched the album. And after that, they went to Machu Picchu to record a video, which is really, it's in YouTube, you can find it. They played the album here. And when they were there, it's really interesting in the DVD, the interviews, they're really moved because the album, the music makes a lot of sense with the landscape, and they are impressed with what they did, because it's like, we've never been here before, and this music belongs here somehow.
Wow.
It's really interesting. And you can watch it on YouTube. It's a really interesting film. Now, problem is that in 1986, Gabriel Parra, the drummer of Los Jaivas, after a concert in Santiago, he drove to Peru because they were planning to play again in Peru. He had an accident, he died. He died in Peru. The band stopped playing for a while. They reformed with a new drummer, the daughter of the former drummer. So they continued the music as a family. Now, in 2003, Gato Alquinta, the main voice, the main composer, also died of a heart attack. So he replaced him with his son again. So it's like a family thing. They are still playing. They are celebrating 60 years of life this year. And they're one of our most beloved bands. And I wanted to mention this. They played in England in the 70s, a couple of dates, where a lot of people went to see them. And a lot of people compared them to Led Zeppelin at the time. Nothing happened, they never met. But in 2012, I want to say, in 2012, Robert Plant, singer of Led Zeppelin, played in Santiago, a solo show, and they opened for him. Because he listened to the records and he was like, this is like our music, I want them to open for me. So that's when they became friends, actually. And also, Led Zeppelin lost their drummer, and they kept on going, playing music as different members, but there's a story that linked them. Yeah. Now, That's Los Jaivas. One of my, I have to say, this is one of my favorite bands, and probably the only band that makes me cry when I watch them live. I don't know why. I always cry
Los
when
Jaivas?
Los
The new one.
Jaivas. Los Jaivas. Every time I go to a Los Jaivas concert, and I go to a lot of them because I work in the music industry, I cry every time I see them. Weird. And when I talk to them, they're really nice people. Yeah, okay.
Fierro negro que duerme, fierro negro que gime.
Here we have another example of another band. This is Congreso.
Por cada poro un grito de desconsolación. Las cenizas ardidas sobre la tierra triste, los caldos en que el bronce derritió su dolor. A veces, de qué lejano país desventuradoras naron en la noche dolorosa y sin fin. Y el grito se me crispa como un nervio enroscado.
Okay, what do you listen when you hear Congreso? Tamara.
Well, because we were just listening to music in the future, it feels like we went back in time again. Yeah, that's what I'm getting right now, but
Yeah.
somebody else may have more to say.
Of course. Rona?
No, I don't have a lot to say. It just sounds of its time, and
It makes sense, right? In the time.
yeah,
Sort of rockish and popish. And,
so it sounds a bit less Latin American than what we were listening to before. It's a
Exactly.
bit more European. But
Exactly. That's because all of these groups started listening to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and wanted to emulate what they were doing. But then across their journey, they encountered Latin American music and their Latin American roots, and that's how they started to evolve into something different. Ellen, what do you think?
Yeah, it starts off pretty like folky,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
then it really transitions into like a really nice modern take on it for that time. But I really like the arrangement of that.
Yeah, yep. There's a lot of arrangement there because it's folkish, and then you got like electric guitars. Janice, what do you think?
I had a hard time. It was so loud. I can't turn down my volume. But yeah, it's much more rock
Mhm.
style than what we've been listening to.
This is Congreso. Congreso, a band from Quilpué, near Valparaiso. I would say an hour from the coast, right? The Congreso, literally Congress in English, right? But the idea of the name is because they wanted to have like a communion, like a community speaking, right? It doesn't have to do with politics in 67, but later on it's going to get another meaning, right? They discovered their folk roots because they had a band previously that sounded a lot like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But during their journey, as I said, they found these instruments, this music, this Victor Jara sound, Violeta Parra, everything that was going on during the Allende time influenced what they were doing. And they launched their first record, El Congreso, in 71. Now, different from Los Jaivas or Los Blobs, there was a lot of interest in poetry in their lyrics. Actually, the singer Pancho Sasso, is a poet more than a singer. He doesn't have a really good voice, with all due respect. He said it. I'm not the one who sang it. He said it. He doesn't have a really great voice, but the lyrics are important here, right? They took a lot of influence from Pablo Neruda, for example, or Gabriela Mistral, the biggest poets that we have, right? Now, in 73, they also suffered something, like most of Chileans did, but different from Los Blob, who disbanded and they went on to live their individual lives, and different from Los Jaivas, who fled the country and left and lived their nomad life. They stayed. They stayed in Chile, and they kept on working almost as a secret, because nothing could happen at the time. So I had the luxury of speaking to one of them in the music site I worked for, and he told me that in this period of time, they were hiding. They were like practicing in their houses. They didn't have a rehearsal space. They would practice in their houses, and they would play in churches, right? The venues they used to play were churches or the bombers site, right? So police couldn't like get there and take them to prison, for example, because playing live was banned at the time. So, and in 73, when everything went down and collapsed, they almost disbanded. They kept on playing, and they published their first rock album in dictatorship, which is Terra Incognita from 74. Listen to this. What is going on here, Kathy?
So the first song I heard of theirs, the one that I listened to, the Maestranzas de Noche, I had them, that reminded me, like there was a little chord in it that reminded me nearly of The Way That Broke Away was Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds. A little chord in it. And I had Johnny Cash down. They, for me, that kind of era was that, like the Johnny Cash kind of folky telling the story, but then a thrown in part I had, and it sounded to me like the intro to the part of Lucy, and when they changed the version.
That's true. That's true.
And then and the rest of it to me sounded very much like a Johnny Cash kind of going into rock. And then for this one, or I think it was, I'm not sure if this is Vamos Andando Mi Amigo, I have down that they're going kind of like into a hippie style. I have down the Mamas and the Papas. They remind me kind of like of a hippie style of Mamas and the Papas, but that the pipe music comes back in.
Yeah, perfect.
Or the Latin feel to it.
Perfect. That's a really good description of what you're listening to. Janice?
Sorry.
Yeah. just, yeah, there's a lot more presence of the pipes, which is different style than the other bands we've been listening to.
Yeah. But in terms of music, did you notice that the intro was really long? The intention there, according to the musicians, the intention there was to skip censorship, because everything that you publish must be heard by someone in the industry, or in this case, from someone from the junta. And they thought these people are not interested in music; they're interested in the lyrics. So if we have long intros, they would skip to the main part,
wow.
and they won't see what we're trying to say. So the song is like this: ¿Dónde estarás? Literally, where will you be? And as I said, poetry is important in the lyrics. There are a lot of hidden messages and metaphors in their songs. So a song like "Where Will You Be," played and published in a time where people were disappearing in the country, was a really bold movement, in my opinion. They were really brave, right? Tamara, what do you think?
Oh, well, I was just thinking of like how the music from this time is so political, because we went camping over Christmas and Alvaro was playing some of this music, and people in the group actually changed the playlist because it's so a part of people's identity in whatever they experience that it can be very painful.
It is. Yeah, it has a lot of memories attached to it, or meaning. I mean, I didn't live the period, but that's why whenever I listen to this, I cry somehow. I don't know why. You know, it makes me think of a Chile in tremor in a suffering period, right? So I agree with what you say. Ellen, what do you hear when you listen to this kind of music by Congreso?
I don't really have anything to add, but I was gonna mention, like, yeah, it felt really drawn out in the beginning, but you explained why.
It's very strange. I mean, these three bands that I've just mentioned are probably three of the most important bands in rock history in Chile. I'm gonna close or finish this session with this. Volantín de plumas. Volantín de plumas by Congreso. And this goes. Volantín de plumas.
Volantín de plumas, chirigüe, chirigüe cantor, llano y cordillera. Eres mansedumbre de trigales. ¿Dónde fuiste hoy a dejar tu voz? Cogollos del tiempo que iluminarán sentimiento lindo que presiento.
Yeah. So now, Ellen, what do you listen? What do you hear here?
I don't got much. It sounds pretty folky and drawn out again, but his voice is very nice to me.
Yeah, you're very folky, a nice voice. Rona, what do you think?
Similar, folky. It's quite melodic. Again, quite a long intro. I don't know if it's for the same reason, but
Well, a feather kite. What could a feather kite be?
I was thinking of the people flying away, the people leaving.
Good idea. People flying away, people leaving. What else do you think when they mention a feather kite? He's actually talking about.
Sorry, go ahead.
He's talking about a bird, and bird represents freedom. But also, if you pay attention to that, volantín de plumas, basically this VP. It's Violeta Parra. Violeta Parra is one of the most important musicians that was banned during the dictatorship. So they were playing a sort of tribute, and they wanted to bring them back alive in their music. So it's basically music of resistance during the dictatorship. Congreso are still playing, still to this day, with a different lineup, of course, but they're still one of the greatest and most important bands in the history of Chile. If you are ever in Santiago or in Chile in general, if you have the chance of seeing them live, it's an amazing band. It's an amazing band because in the 80s and the 90s, they included more like world music, if I may say so. So it's not only folkish stuff, it's really random and sort of an orchestra playing, and really, really amazing. I love them with all of my heart. So final thoughts to end this session. Kathy, for example?
I think you can really, I think what Tamara said earlier about the how they change from like these groups in the 60s to maybe like happy bandstand, imitating Americans, kind of jolly music, to much more of a political hippie way of possibly expressing their frustration or their protests. And I think you can see that through the music and the way it evolves, possibly. But also, I think, as Rona mentioned as well, there does seem to be that kind of influence of like long instrumental periods of, you know, kind of like Pink Floyd. And I got a lot of kind of like the Johnny Cash and the Mamas and the Papas and the kind of folklore to hippie movement, especially in Congress. So that's what I have it down.
I agree with you totally. Thank you very much for your words. Ellen?
I'm just thinking right now, like, I wonder how people who don't know or didn't know the history of Chile and the dictatorship, like what are their thoughts when they listen to these songs and bands?
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a good question. You show them to your friends and let me know what they think of it. Rona?
I quite like the fact that they're influenced by sort of the 70s and what was going on in the world, but there's still that sort of Latin American influence with lots of the pipes and things like that, so it makes it different. So I like that.
Well, I just show you the most important bands according to my opinion and the opinion of some journalists and musicologists, but there are many other bands that even recorded 1 or 2 records, or some other bands that didn't even record. right? But yeah, they were really influenced by what was going on. They were trying to replicate what I don't know, Led Zeppelin, probably Pink Floyd, Deep Purple were doing. That was really big. Janice.
I don't really have that much to add other than I kind of felt like their music was really transitional. Like it was so different over the years. It's like I definitely want to go back and listen to it with the understanding that we've gained in the class.
Of course, you can listen to. I highly recommend that you listen to the playlist, but go to the original albums because it is also a different kind of experience because the albums were thought of as a form of art and they were telling a story, like sort of almost concept albums. Yeah, and if you listen to the records as a whole experience, you'll find something different. I have something to add. If you use Netflix, I highly recommend this. This is a Rompan Todo is a documentary series on Latin American rock music.
Huh?
And it tells you the story about rock in Mexico, Argentina, Peru, Chile, Uruguay. And it's all like moving, like floating and I don't know, like a river. It's telling you that everything, because we're just analyzing what was going on in Chile, but in Argentina, there was another movement which was kind of similar, but more like broader, I would say, but also in Mexico and in Peru, they had something to say. So I highly recommend that you watch this, especially episodes 1 and 2, because if you go to 3, you'll see what was going on in the 80s, and that is going to be our next chapter. Tamara?
What was the name of that? Sorry, I missed the name.
Rompan Todo. It's in the chat.
Okay.
Rompan Todo, or Break It All. It's a Netflix production, so it should be available around the world. Tamara, what do you think, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I had more of a detailed thought, which is some of the music just reminds me of like when I was in Cusco or like up in high in the mountains. It just felt like I was up there in several different songs. Like I don't know what that is, but that's just what is reminding me of that I don't know, that high altitude.
That's amazing. That's amazing because I've been to Cusco 3 times, and every time I go there, I bring my playlist with it, and it makes a lot of sense. It's incredible, and you have to bear in mind that this is music made by people in the city, like, and probably they have never been in the mountains before that. When they went there for the first time, it's amazing. Like it's like how do we do this if we live in a great city? Okay, so if you ever had that experience, like Tamara mentioned, if you ever go to the mountains or Los Andes or anywhere in Latin America, you listen to this music and it will make sense anyhow. Okay, thank you very much for your presence. Thank you very much for your opinions. This is what I really like about these sessions, you telling me what you think, because in the end, when you get the same message I get, I've lived here for 41 years old, for 41 years, and apparently I get the same message you have. So that means the musicians are right and our artists are the greatest.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next.
Thank
We'll see you.
Are you sending a new playlist for next week's class so we just look at the classroom?
Yeah.
And you'll send it through.
Exactly. And
okay,
we'll be revisiting the 80s.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good
Bye, guys.
weekend,
Have a good weekend.
Weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.